As you probably know, one of the most popular features of 4chan was that it allowed its users to stay completely anonymous, which was part of the culture of the forum. Still, some users chose to have a username to put more weight behind their words and engage in genuine social interactions with others. This was the case with user UTV, who was very active on the 4chan sports board. Back in the day, based in his post, UTV was an Englishman who followed the Premier League, was a fan of Aston Villa striker Christian Bennett, and hated Manchester City. Most of his interactions in the boards he participated in are pretty much exactly what you'd expect from a slightly aggressive sports fan in an online board. But there was one thing that made UTV's posts stand out. In the sea of fortune threads, strangely, UTV had a secret admirer, an anonymous user who tracked, archived, and followed every single one of UTV's posts and comments across more than 250 threads. The film Maryland, as the archive or titled the document, contains detailed information about Phil's posts, his interests, and his interactions with the archiver. On the front page, an explanation for the document reads, "Why am I doing this? Because UTV is my passion, my hobby, and my social life. I love him, and I love archiving his posts. Archiving his posts isn't enough. Bread and butter. But this is the salt and pepper on the sandwich that spices it up." The rest of the 97-page document is about as crazy as you'd expect from a guy who spent all his waking hours stalking another guy on 4chan. It contains detailed stories and fantasies involving the archive, and UTV. A detailed plan to make UTV like him more. Pictures of inventions and gadgets the archiver designed using snippets of UTV's posts. An incredibly dark and meticulously planned blueprint to abduct UTV and hold him hostage for 40 million. And so much more stuff that you can't even imagine. When the archive shared his master worker, Phil responded, did only with a question mark, and then vanished forever. From 4chan, to this day, the internet still doesn't know what to make of the archive or his motivations behind obsessing over a stranger to such an insane degree. Some alleged mental illness, others think the archive just genuinely loved Phil. But whatever the case, the PDF served as a wake-up call to be careful who you talk to or give information about yourself online, because you never really know what they're doing with it. On Christmas Day 2014, an anonymous 4chan user opened a pretty disturbing thread with the words, "I bought a Wii U, but it was broken, so I opened the Wii U and this thing was inside. What is this?" Next to the captions, the user uploaded a couple of images of some sort of brown oval-shaped object inside the console. At first glance, the OP thought it was probably something an animal had left in there. But a few minutes later, he followed up with some images that looked like something straight out of a nightmare. Apparently, the brown object was some sort of spider nest, and as soon as the OP cracked it open, it looked like this. A few minutes later, the poster commented, "At least the spider is already dead. Whatever happened, it's an egg opened too soon, or an egg that never managed to open. The spiders must have devoured each other to stay alive, and eventually grew to max capacity, and truly died. The side shows they're adults, but the color shows they literally have no plating or skin." 3 minutes later, the OP gave a chilling update, saying this one was still alive. And this is where the thread starts to get a little disturbing. Just a few seconds later, another user commented on the post saying, "Okay, I googled it for you, OP. That's a dirt dauber. Now the spiders are paralyzed inside of it. If they're not dead by now, and they're actually fresh catches, they're going to be waking up soon and responding to the image of the live spider." The OP posted, the user warned, "This spider kind of looks like a brown recluse. If you let it sting you, your arm is going to start rotting while you're alive," responding to the original picture of the spiders. Another user commented, "By the looks of it, the last one just woke up, and the dirt dauber might not even have started laying its larvae yet. If that's the case, these might just be paralyzed. Also, I'm afraid for Op's life, since the spider that did wake up looks like a brown recluse. And if that's actually the case, the op has a dirt dober nest full of brown recluses. He's in for one hell of a ride. Over the next several minutes, dozens of other users jumped in the chat to warn the op not to provoke the spiders under any circumstances. Fortunately, shortly after the op posted a final update to the thread, saying, "Op here. They weren't dead, and they started to move. I ran out of my house and called the exterminator. I'm posting from my cell phone. It's pretty disturbing to think that a nest of poisonous spiders could be growing inside of one of your consoles without you knowing it, and according to another commenter, it's actually pretty common for dirt daubers to do this. Thankfully, it looks like the op was okay." On November 29th, 2007, an anonymous 4chan user uploaded a disturbing post with the words, "If anyone can correctly guess their own post number, I will tell you where she is buried. Eli." The post was accompanied by an image of a teenage girl. For context, on November 29th, 4chan, each thread is assigned a unique post number, which is completely random and serves as an identifier for that specific post. These kinds of posts with the op would reward other users with something if they managed to guess their exact post. Number were pretty common, but the words themselves were rarely this dark and specific. You can probably understand how the creepy nature of this particular post instantly caught the attention of so many people. It's worth mentioning that the times from the screenshots shown are the archive dates and times, meaning they're not accurate. But over the following minutes after the post was made, several other users jumped in to guess their post numbers. And just 15 minutes later, a user correctly guessed theirs. After which, the op made good on their promise and said, "Winner, here, you go." And a set of coordinates. Strangely, the coordinates pointed to a pretty random patch of trees on the side of a county road, about 50 miles east of El Dorado, Kansas. But as it was later revealed, there was nothing random about the location. The girl in the image in the anonymous user's post was 18-year-old Emily Sander, a Butler Community College student who had gone missing a little less than a week before the disturbing post was made. Shockingly, the police found Sanders's partially clothed body around an hour after the coordinates were revealed, at the exact coordinates provided by the user. Again, this was already a huge stretch, and it didn't exactly help Israel's case that investigators found a large knife and clothing with his DNA and a trash can at his girlfriend's home in Baxter Springs when it was more than obvious that Israel was responsible for the crime. A judge sentenced him to life in prison without parole. As for the 4chan thread, I couldn't find any official confirmation that the post was uploaded by Israel, and it's worth mentioning that because the coordinates were revealed a little under an hour before the cops officially announced where they had found Emily, the thread could have been opened by someone on the police force who knew about the location before the public. Still, there's a very real possibility that the 4chan post was uploaded by the killer himself, adding an even more disturbing layer to an already horrific. In March 2020, an anonymous 4chan user posted an image of a missing girl named Lisa Irwin, along with a set of coordinates that point to a random location in the middle of the trees somewhere in Lakeside Village, Kansas. For context, Lisa had got missing in October 2011 when she was just a 10-month-old baby. That day, Jeremy Earn, Lisa's dad, came back from work at 4 a.m. and immediately called the cops when he saw his daughter was missing from her crib. Disturbingly, he mentioned to his wife Deborah that the front door was unlocked and that 3 cell phones were missing. During the investigation, a bunch of really strange things started happening, and it was hard for the cops to make sense of anything. Even though some witnesses had reported seeing a straw man carrying a baby wearing a diaper near the area where Lise had been gone missing, they didn't have enough evidence to arrest a particular suspect. Surveillance video from the area showed a man dressed in white leaving a wooded area near the Irwins' house at 2:30 a.m. But the suspect the cops brought in as a result of the footage had rock-solid alias. Chillingly, when the cops searched the Irwins' house that same year, dogs picked up the SC of a dead body in Deborah's bedroom. When the authorities confronted her about it, she claimed she didn't initially look for her daughter because she was afraid of what she might find.
The image you see in the 4chan thread is actually an age-progressed picture released by the authorities to help the public identify the victim, and it shows what Lisa would have looked like at 7 years old as soon as the user posted the coordinates. Some of the commenters started suspecting that the op was the perpetrator and that the coordinates pointed to the location in the middle of the woods where Lisa's body was located. One user commented, "I just mailed this thread to 2 local NBC affiliates in Kansas that cover the Comptonville and Oskaloosa area. Hopefully this is legit and we
can finally do some good and bring peace to a family." But even though a lot of people got in touch with the police over the lead coordinated, frustratingly nothing really came of them. And it's unclear if the cops just didn't investigate the coordinates or if they did but they didn't find anything there. To this day, Lisa's disappearance has created more questions than answers. Was it the guy who was seeing the surveillance footage? Was it the parents or the 4chan user? We'll likely never know.
Back in 2009, dozens of 4chan users started to bring attention to a pretty strange phenomenon that was taking place all over the internet, in which some mysterious comments about key lime pie were cropping up on countless websites, blogs, and forums. Everywhere online. Although the original 4chan threads in which these discussions took place have since been deleted, I was able to find some more recent Reddit threads covering the same key lime pie phenomenon. In 2016, Reddit user KeyMyWT uploaded a long post about his or her investigation into the whole thing, and it read, "So, I'm just going to throw this one out there since I haven't found anyone who's investigated or discussed this super weird, almost nonsensical mystery to begin. I was reading a story in my local college newspaper. In fact, it was the most read article on the site. There were 3 comments on the story itself, and one of them seemed utterly strange. There's an absurd amount of references to pop culture, names as well as some political names, but the subject of every line relates back to more often than not. These things: Mrs. Anita Pays Captain Cochi Pos Key Lime Pie, some Cochi's restaurant, North Carolina near the Biltmore Estate, Key West, Florida. And not every post is exactly the same, but some reference weird pop culture icons, while some just seem to be weird out-of-play recipes. The oldest post we found was from 2009, with the most recent being an awful TMZ story, super weird. But if you were to Google or research those names
associated with Kimi Pie, what you would discover is that this has been posted all over his media sites. A couple of things here that we discovered down the rabbit hole. Kishi's Key West Bar and Grill existed in one way or another. Every website's in Google Maps, but there's really no information as to what exactly it was. Nothing on the user's profile indicating that their first language was Swedish, which indicates that Captain Cucci could have stalked to the user in Eli. This wasn't the only time this happened. Whenever people reached out to these accounts to ask for information about the key lime pie phenomenon, they would often receive strange responses with very specific information about their lives that the key made pie people had no reason to know.
Mystery goes pretty deep, but some things have been confirmed to be true. For example, as mentioned, the Kimi WTF's rented post, Key West Bar and Grill was a real place in Asheville, North Carolina, according to dozens of Reddit users. The original owners were Oswald C. Paz, aka Cucci, and his wife Anita Paz. But interestingly, even though the random comments and reviews were almost all about pie, the restaurant was actually known for its burgers. So, despite this information, it's hard to understand where the connection is between the restaurant and the 15-year-long campaign to flood the internet with strange reviews about their key lime pies. Over the years, this has led thousands of people all over the internet to come up with all kinds of theories to explain the phenomena.
On August 25, 2009, a 4chan user opened a thread with the title, "Look, when I found the caption read, so I was looting through some stuff my dad left when he died and I found this, the old bastard had a live grenade. It seems kind of old but looks okay."
To me, what would the random board do with it? Next to the capture was an image of the op's hand holding what appeared to be a live grenade. For the next 15 minutes, the thread was flooded with all kinds of comments from users all around the world, with some claiming that the grenade was fake and asking the uploader for proof that it was made out of real metal and wasn't just a plastic.
Imitation. Let me see the bottom of it. Bottom, it's plastic. Although no plastic to you, it's all metal. With this comment, the op included an image of himself holding up a lighter to a grenade, which is obviously a horrific idea. Still, it was nothing compared to what was coming. Disturbingly, some of the other commenters encouraged the poster to throw the grenade in the toilet, saying things like toss in toilet, don't flush, wait for epic fountain. You would think that the op would be able to interpret the comment as a joke, but sure enough, a few minutes later, he posted another image, this time showing his hand holding the caption, "Him should I." This is where the story gets pretty disturbing.
It's also pretty suspicious that the article was allegedly published pretty much within an hour of the op's last comment, which further reports the idea that the whole thing is fake. It's possible that the op himself could have posted the Photoshop article screenshot from another account to get attention, or that he could have made the original post and then went quiet to get a reaction from the crowd, after which another user could have jumped in to keep the story going with a fake news article. Although it's still very possible this is real and the original article has just since been lost to time because the incident is over 15 years old at this point, we'll likely never know the whole truth.